when I'm playing normal speed, I struggle to focus when it comes to wasting stamina. And a lot of times I will overspend it and I'm fucked. But when it's going slower like this, my mind, and this may be where your mind is at normal speed, my mind says, oh, you're doing that thing, Jaffe. Like, I have the space in my brain. I have the bandwidth to think. Go, oh, you're doing that thing where you're pounding the stamina button. Don't do that. And then I can stay alive longer. But this is not easy for me. I still haven't killed this dude. How many more times do we have to have the conversation about should Elden Ring have a difficulty mode? Blah, blah, blah. It's, whatever. Your mileage will vary. It'll never get solved. Who cares? Whatever. But I want to bring it up only for two reasons, though, because there's a little bit of new data, especially in light of Erdtree, the DLC that just came out a couple of days ago, which is a lot of people are saying, even hardcore fans, and I haven't talked to Spazbo, who's kind of the Discord's resident savant of game playing. I don't know his take on it, but I will tell you that there's a lot of people who are core gamers that are just saying, hey, this has gone beyond hard and difficult and get good, and this is just stupid. Is that true? I don't know, because I have no intention of playing it, at least for the time being. Maybe if they put out some patches, blah, blah, blah. But I want to read you, and it's sitting in a mixed review right now over on Steam, by the way. And some of it's because of the performance on PC, but most of it is because of the difficulty just being what they consider to be so out of whack. And I told you guys that I was very fascinated, and I remain so, about how this is going to do. There was like almost 1 million concurrent players on Friday or Thursday whenever it came out over on Steam. So it came out the gate strong. But between the reputation of it being hard and between, I think, a lot of people who probably did not come close to finishing the first one, even though they bought it because of the hype and it was delightful, my favorite game of all time, probably are going to stay away. So all this is kind of going on, and then Game Informer releases an interview. We've alluded to it in the past, but here's a quote with the game director and president of From Software, good sir Miyazaki. He says, when players are killed, and this is why I want to talk about this, because Miyazaki is now in this quote giving proof that my solution to this, quote, problem, whether you think it's a problem or not, he agrees. And I want to show you that, and then I want to show you an experiment I did yesterday on the internet. Here's what he says. When players are killed in the games, Elden specific, but From Software games in general, the Souls games, and they can understand why they were killed in an instant, and it just feels justified, okay, that makes sense, he says. That's the game design, and we're trying to achieve that, says Miyazaki. I know a lot of players out there are probably going to disagree. They're going to say, what are you talking about? This game doesn't make sense. What the heck? But we try to make sure that there's a learning curve and a feedback loop that the players are able to extract from that they can then bring into the next attempt. We believe in difficult games, but not games that are unjustly or unfairly so. But of course, there's still room for improvement on our side as well. So let's be clear. What he is saying is his number one goal is to make a game that, hard or not for you, if you fail, if you die, you should walk away from it, according to Miyazaki, and go, I know what I did wrong, or, that didn't work, but now I have a different idea, right? He doesn't just want to make you get good. He wants to provide you with data from your failure to allow you to get good. And what I also love about Miyazaki's take on these games is that he wants you to work with other people to figure out some of the things, because I absolutely agree. And this is where the experiment I did that I'm about to show you is really fucking, it brings up some real interesting design conundrums, at least to me. But when, what's great about the games that I've loved so much, especially about this one, is that if something is hard and I'm failing, 95% of the time in Elden Ring, not only can I walk away and grind my character, which I do find enjoyable, not everybody does, but even if I'm not grinding, there's so much neat stuff to discover And there's so many neat, pieces of lore or different things to do outside of just fighting that it's insanely satisfying. So I get what he's saying, but I want to tell you what I've been sort of preaching in sort of a sledgehammer way is new consoles having kind of a meta speed dial that sits on top of all the games, like in the API of just the PlayStation OS, and any game can have that dial turned beyond 1 up or down based on what the player wants to do. And I understand not everybody's going to agree with that. Okay. That's the sledgehammer way. But basically what we're talking about is the gameplay stays the same, but what you're adjusting for, just like you adjust for color blindness, just like you adjust for controllers because people are physically disabled. I think as you get more and more gamers coming into the space and staying in the space, and we see that when it comes to data and statistics, you're going to have to account for people getting older or people simply not being genuinely great no matter their age. But certainly as you get older, your reflexes slow down, right? Well, because this is what I did last night. I tried to do it with Elden Ring. I went and I bought Elden Ring on PC. And then I brought up this program. I'm sure you know it if you play on PC. I think it's called like Cheat. What is this thing called? It's called Cheat Engine. Okay. And what Cheat Engine does is it lets you, I'll just show it to you real quick on the screen. It lets you do a lot of things. But what it lets you do in this case is, let me drag it over there for you. It lets you basically pick the game you're playing. I'm not running any games right now. And then you can do enable speed check. And then you can then take the game and set it up to like 100 times normal speed. Or you can drop it to almost nothing. Okay. And all the tuning is the same. The damage, the weapons, all of it's the same. What it allows you to do is just like in Spider-Man 2 with their setting or Roller Drome in their setting, it allows you to have the same experience that everyone else is having that doesn't need that disability setting. And I think because StreamYard is up, and I'm going to put the link up under this video if you want to see it running in real time. But I went last night and I was playing this game, which I love, No Rest for the Wicked. And I took it into Cheat Engine and I dropped the speed down. And again, this is probably going to run chunky for you, and that's not me and that's not my footage. I'll put the actual footage up on YouTube after the stream. But again, for some reason, StreamYard seems to shit the bed when it tries to play video. And I'll get to you guys' chat. I see you're typing, but I just want to get through this topic, and then I want to see what you guys have to think about it. But okay, and I have commentary. But so this is it at normal speed, I believe, if I remember correctly. So I wanted to kind of show the fight, and maybe this is actually like 0.7. But where I decided to set it was 0.5. Okay, so this is, yes, and the character runs slowly as well. And again, I'm almost assuming you can't appreciate this while you're watching live. But just trust me when I say it's like watching combat in extreme slow motion. So not only is this great for allowing someone like me to go, I'm having the same experience, right? So when you guys talk about get good, it's like, dude, you know how to do it whenever he raises his fist or his shoulder kind of shifts or whatever. That's when you have to dodge. It's like, yeah, but my brain doesn't process it that fast. So by the time that occurs, I'm too late. I can't get out of the fucking way. So now I sped it up to like 2x because I wanted to get there faster, which is its own kind of design conundrum. It's like all I'm doing is racing to get there, and there's no gameplay. And it's like, you start to wonder, it's like, how much of this shit do you really actually need? It's not fun to run through that over and over. But regardless, though, I sped up to get there. And here we go. So now this is me off screen changing the speed to 0.5. And so, you know, and so you'll be able to see it. And is this running normally? It is literally the same experience, Doug. I understand your point. You're saying it's not the same experience. You changed it. What you're missing, the point you're missing, is that the experience I care about is the experience that the designer wants me to have. So for me, I still haven't beaten this guy yet, right? This isn't cheat mode. It is for someone like Spaz or maybe someone like you. And 0.5 might be a little slow, maybe like 0.6. I know what to do. My brain just can't process it, right? But now, like that hit, every single hit in this game that I take, every single one, like Miyazaki was saying, I go, that's my fault. Because I get, oh, yeah, I just wasn't paying attention. And one of the things that I loved about this experiment last night is if you look at the character and you look at the little green dial, that's her stamina. And when I am playing normal speed, and this is a get good thing, okay? But when I'm playing normal speed, I struggle to focus when it comes to wasting stamina. And a lot of times I will overspend it and I'm fucked. But when it's going slower like this, my mind, and this may be where your mind is at normal speed, my mind says, oh, you're doing that thing, Jaffe. Like I have the space in my brain. I have the bandwidth to think and go, oh, you're doing that thing where you're pounding the stamina button. Don't do that. And then I can stay alive longer. But this is not easy for me. I still haven't killed this dude. So all I'm saying though, and again, I don't care if you call it cheating. I'm not in this for some kind of fucking kudos or anything. I'm in it for design philosophy. I'm in it for the love of the medium. And so when I hear Miyazaki himself literally say, we want every battle, if you lose it, yeah, it's hard, but you should walk away with some information about what you did poorly. Well, when I play like this, I can process what I did poorly. And again, I'm sorry, this is so ignorant. Like, I can't tell Tim Duncan, I know you're a troll, but I do know somebody called in recently and was really kind of talking up the value of hard games because they asked me, I was just so surprised to actually hear this come out of a real person's mouth. I thought it was just sort of internet troll stuff, but they said, don't you think that that's a real sense of pride when you beat a game and all this stuff? And I'm like, I don't. But regardless though, when you say this isn't the intended experience, actually, this is the intended experience. If you go by what Miyazaki said when he was quoted in Game Informer about this very issue. Because let me ask you a question, Tim Duncan. If Tim Duncan, wasn't that the name of the dad in Good Luck Charlie? It doesn't matter. Teddy was the kid. Teddy was the teenage girl. Tim Duncan. I don't know. Anyway, the point being, when you play this game, let's just say this game, because we're looking at this, not Erdtree, at normal speed and you die, your brain, if you don't need this kind of help, is able to do what the game director intended, which is you walk away with data of, oh, I fucked up because see how he does that? He's going to push the shield. Oh, I got it. It's not a straight slam. See how he's actually slamming there and rotating? Seriously, I'm not making a point. I'm trying to point it out literally. So he's going to rush forward right here, and it looks like he's going to slam the sword forward, but he rotates. He tracks a little bit, right? Well, I can't recognize that at normal speed. That is absolutely not about getting good. That's that when you're running it at normal speed, I wasn't able to recognize that pattern. So what you recognized at normal speed, Miyazaki's happy with because now that data lives with you to get better. What I recognized at normal speed is frustration and I want to quit. But what I recognized at this speed is, the same thing you recognized at normal speed. So how am I not having the experience that the game director wants us to have? It would seem that this experience at full speed is basically not what he wants us to have. This experience is a fucking nightmare at normal speeds for me. It's not a badly. I mean, it's a badly okay. So Blood Money says, Jaffe, that's just a badly designed boss. It's not though. In the sense that it's not in the world of. It's not a badly. I'll keep this up when I'm looking at the chat. Sorry. It's not a badly designed boss in the world of these sorts of games, because Elden Ring has the same issue, which is, they move really fast and it's hard to read what they're doing. They don't have like lights that flash on before the weapon goes or anything like that. Do you mute the sound? No, the all the music and everything is normal speed. I don't know why it's just, I don't really care though. $6 says if it's a feature in the game, then it's fine. When people add mods, it's cheating. Cool, great. I don't care. I want to see Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo add this everywhere. On every game, it sits atop because your gamers are getting older and not. And again, if I was able to go in here and kick this guy's ass, I would agree with you. I would say that's ridiculous. I would say that's absolutely ridiculous. You can have a mod that cheats, but you don't want to make that a demand for games. But that's like saying that, a guy who is physically disabled and needs a certain kind of controller is cheating. No, he's just getting to play the game with an experience that feels like yours, is what I would say. Saying this is not the intended experience is like saying someone out of shape working out is not having the intended exercise because fit people push double the weight. Right. That's a great point, actually, because if you are used to ethical, it's a great point. If you are used to bench pressing 500 pounds, I don't obviously know much about bench pressing. Is that possible? If you can bench press 500 pounds and it is like everything you can do, but you put your gut into it and your heart and your soul and you listen to music and you're, motivated. But for me, that experience comes at 20 pounds. It is the same experience. I won't have the same experience you do. Now, would I, and you could argue, yeah, but it took me 5 years to be able to do that. Sure. But we're not talking about the character advancing. We're talking about you as a human, maybe for whatever reason, are more inclined to value exercise when you started lifting. So you were already ahead of me. Genetically, you might be more predisposed to build muscle faster or whatever. So if you use that as a all for one answer that everybody has in order to say, is this the intended experience? You're actually getting further away from it. So that's all I'm saying. And more importantly, as it relates to Elden Ring, goddamn Miyazaki agrees with me. So shut up. But I know that's his game. It's only one game. But it's interesting. I'll bring you in a second, Tatum. Dizzy Death says, finding ways of conveying that information at the intended speed would be ideal. What I'm arguing, though, Dizzy Death, is that information is conveyed at the intended speed if your brain can process it. If your brain is younger, or if your eyesight is such that you can read the moves and separate something from the background colors more than someone else. But fundamentally, the fact that I can't read the moves, I don't think has anything to do with the animation. And if they were to, I think if you were to put a tweak in that made the animation read better, like more dramatically, at any speed, that would be more of a cheat to me, than this. Tyler says, why do they care if someone cheats? They're not playing it. I don't know, but the reason I care about it is because as a one-time game designer and as a always adorer of the art form, and as someone who is getting older, all of those things to me, that's why it's more interesting. It's less interesting about, are you going to actually add this mode to Elden Ring, and more about if the director really wants the game to be appreciated by his vision. They're actually doing themselves a disservice, in my opinion, by not adding these things. Okay, I'm going to bring in Awesome. Awesome Tatum, it's Jaffe. What's going on, champ?
Jaffe, what's happening, bro?
Well, I'm just doing a stream, man. What What are you doing?
Well, let's talk Elden Ring. Okay, so
Okay.
I want to make sure I understand what you're trying to say, because
Okay.
I feel like for you, again, the reason that you're saying you wanted to slow it down is
Yep.
more so kind of the ADD thing, right? Because you're
No.
saying
No.
no.
It plays a factor as it relates to the hang on, let me move this. I'll bring this back up, Bookster. It plays a part as it relates to me being able to have a little bit more bandwidth to focus on that green meter.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when it's moving at normal speed, I'm so unable to just settle, be present. Yes, that's the ADD. And in fact, the one great lesson I did get from that esports coach was he says the number one thing I tell people is you'd be surprised how little a lot of people, when they're playing games, single or multiplayer, but we were talking multiplayer competitive, he said you'd be surprised how little people recognize they're not breathing. And he says if all you can do is remember to just sort of settle in, you're going to open up some more bandwidth to focus on what you need to focus on. So that is in play. But the bigger part of it for me is just the reading the patterns. Like, I mean, you can see it, and that's not ADD. That's just reflexes and being able to recognize visually. Like I said, I mean, watch this. Let's look at his. I mean, the other thing I was going to say, what's great about this is if you are considering game design as a career or a hobby, or just you're curious, to watch this at a speed like this, even if you would never play it this way, it is so fascinating to see the little tells they bake in that you would have never noticed before. But in this case, there's a thing I tend to do a lot where I don't recognize the moves when it's running at fast speed, where he's tracking. Like some moves when he swings, it just swings and he doesn't move. In other moves when he swings, they'll rotate his body to track the player. Well, when that's going at normal speed, I can't fucking read that. I don't know where that occurs. And so when I'm playing it at this speed, I'm able to go, oh, that's a move where I need to dodge, right? Or let's see what he's doing right here. He comes in, I dodge to the right because I know he'll track, but I knew I could get out of the way. And now these things that he's looking away from me, now I can hit him, right? I mean, isn't that what we want? Game directors, I've solved the puzzle if I can do that. That's what I want when I was designing games. I want you to figure out the puzzle we've made. It's not about do you have great reflexes. That's your mileage will vary.
Yeah, I mean, again, let me first say that this goes to like people picking on people that play in easy mode. It's like if you want to play the game and this is how you get your enjoyment, fuck everybody, right? Who gives a shit?
Yeah, but I'm not addressing it from that. I don't give a fuck.
No, I got you. I'm just saying it's one point.
I'm just talking more about the art form and sort of if you're the director, how's the best way to actually give you what your vision is, to give everybody that, more people that.
Okay, well, let's on Elden Ring only, and I'm going to talk about Dark Souls because Dark Souls is a different conversation. But for Elden Ring, one of the benefits, and you know this, you've played a lot of hours in Elden Ring. There's so many ways that you can attack a boss. For example, looking at No Rest for Wicked, it's a Soulsborne, right?
Right. Combat, yeah.
But the difference with Elden Ring, and I can tell you this, I've got hundreds of hours in it. I don't need to give my resume on it. You know. The difference with Elden Ring is, first of all, it's all about build strategy. It's not necessarily reflexes, because like if you're a mage build, you can stand in the back and
just magic the fuck out of them.
Yeah, right. You can magic the fuck out. You don't have to have the reflexes. You could just put all your stats into, I'm not going to Elden Ring geek out here, but you can
need you two on a different podcast because I do need to respect my character.
Yeah, me and Spaz need to hook you up, man.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But I absolutely agree. But what I would say, and that's what leads to even a deeper problem though, right? Which is even in this game, because I was like going, okay, well, Jaffe, maybe the reason even at slow speed you're struggling with this character, even though there's not much more to do at this point, it's early access, and I think I'm about the time where I should be fighting this character, but I could go out and grind even more. I could go out and solve a few extra missions to get some money to buy some different gear. And I do love that about RPGs. The problem with that, though, is that I do think that when you have such a fluid definition or a number of ways to skin the cat, I will tell you, as a guy who has sunk hundreds of hours into Elden Ring and still cannot beat the current boss I'm on, and it doesn't feel fun or challenging. It just feels like if I'm going to beat him, I'm going to get lucky at this point. It's like I don't want to go out and look for another larval tier, and I don't want to go out and grind. I've done, it's like I agree with you, but there's a point where that just becomes tedium and you disengage. And I think a game needs to recognize that ideally and say, okay, he's put the work in. For whatever reason, he didn't get the memo on the best way to spec the character for his play style. And Miyazaki might say, well, you're supposed to use the internet for that. I want you to reach out to people like Awesome Tatum. But I'm like, I don't know. It's tough. It's really tough because there's a point where you just say, fuck it, I'm walking away.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it, right? I mean, I get it. Like you're struggling with the Dragon Boss on the base Elden Ring, right?
I've gotten past the horse guy.
He's on the stairs.
No. He's the horse guy's on the stairs. I ran past him.
Oh, you went to Malekith.
Yeah, and now he turns into stage 2. Right. And I've almost beaten him, but then I'll go back 5 times and not come close to beating him. And I'm like, this just feels like luck. I can't read what he's doing. If I could actually read what he was fucking doing, then I think I'd be in better shape. But it's too fast for me to recognize his animation patterns.
Yeah, because his pattern, he does like 3 different patterns at unpredictable things. So when you look at Elden Ring again, and you can even No Rest for Wicked, like the 2 most common techniques to beat a boss without a summon, because in summons,
well, I have a summon.
Summons are fine. He built that in the game.
I love summons, but what is the guy? What's the one that makes a model of you? I have that one.
The mimic tier.
Mimic tier, yeah.
You want to +10 that bitch, and that's easy mode.
Well, it's easy mode, but that boss Malik still kills him every single time after the first stage, like with one hit. So
right, yeah. But there's again, like for Malekith who jumps and all, there's a pattern. Malekith is weak to bleed, so bleed is good. Lightning is good. But there's 2 ways. So when you have
how did you learn that he was weak to bleed versus weak to sleep or weak to poison or weak to blight? Where did you get the data from?
Well, it's get my ass kicked. But I did the research on the internet. So there's several great. There's Fexa Life and there's great.
Yeah, there's something weird. There's something weird about the necessity of that, but I don't dislike it. But you knew, like that's. I think that's the question, right? Mm-hmm. When you're stuck in Elden Ring, you can go, oh, it's a grind issue. I'm just not strong enough. I mean, or it's a build issue, or I'm not using the right type of weapon because this character's susceptible, or you don't have the reflexes like me to read and recognize when these 3 different sets.
Yeah, it's all the above. It's all the above.
And so when you don't know what it is, then it's even more work of like, well, I don't know how to skin this cat, and I've been trying to skin it for 100 hours. Go fuck yourself is my problem. I don't think that's a desirable thing.
Totally agree, but Souls players will argue with you and tell you, and I see it right now with the Shadows of the Erdtree, because the bosses are motherfuckers, right? Oh shit, I hope I'm going to demonetize the bosses anyway. But the problem is that they're so hard, but shit, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I was saying there's so many ways to skin the cat, and when you don't know, and you were saying,
it's that exhilaration that Souls players get from finally figuring it out. Even if you did your research and you go on with the blood build, or you go on there, whatever build, there's 2 techniques like Souls players. You get behind the enemy, slash, don't get greedy, roll back, let him do his 15 attacks, roll back. Sometimes it'll take you an hour to beat a boss, but when you beat it, you fucking figured it out, and it is the best shit ever. So it's like, I would counter what you're saying. I totally agree. Like, who wants to put in the work? But the people that put it, the Souls player tell you, I want to put in the work, because when I beat that bitch, even if it's like 50 times or 100 times, when I beat it, it's the best shit ever. So that's a counter.
And I think it's a good counter. And look, as a guy who's beaten Bloodborne, I mean, I love these games, but I would say that even with that, like the thing you're talking about is, I mean, it is ironic that it's like putting in the work means going and looking at the cheat sheet on the internet. But that said, because I'm sure there are some, no, I'm
that's
sure there are
one
some,
technique.
I know, but I'm sure there are some
Right.
Elden Ring players that would say going, you know, here's the only acceptable solution. And you may not agree with this because this isn't how you played it, which is if you were getting your ass handed to you, you should know by now there's got to be something he's weak to. So try everything. Oh, you don't happen to have any blight, whatever seeds or whatever. Okay, go find some. That's what they would say. But you would say, oh no, my version of getting good is reading the internet solution, right? So for you, the getting good doesn't lie in the reading and recognizing the patterns because your brain can do that. But for, you know, so for Souls players that do that, slowing the game down would be a cheat. But I'm kind of going, well, why don't you look at using the internet as a cheat? I mean, and I'm not saying. What's that?
Why do you? I think most players, again, there's specific corners of Soul players. It's ridiculous, right? And, you know, there's
It's
the
every
no,
fandom, yeah.
right? Yeah, there's the no summon guys. Like, oh, if you use a summon, you know, you're a bitch, right? Or, you know, if you don't beat the boss at level 1, you're a bitch. So like, you can never win. But like, I've tried it all. Like, I've done bosses at low levels and just got good, as I say, with the reflexes. You know, I've got the, you know, use summons, you know, did the strategy. Oh, he's weak to lightning. Okay, I'm going to have a lightning. I did it all. And it's like each one of those gives you a different exhilaration. I'm just saying that
I get it.
That's fun. That's the fun part.
And I do get it. But let me ask you one final question on that, or two final questions. Number one is, do you concede the point that you're like, if you could somehow chart out, or a supercomputer could say, Awesome Tatum's sense of work put in was 7 out of 10, and his exhilaration was an 8. And I played the game, but I had some of these tweaks, and my work put in was a 7 out of 8, or 7 out of 10, sorry. And the exhilaration was an 8 out of 10. We had the same experience, but it was a different way to get to it because of all the things that we bring to it from the beginning. Do you think that is a better use of the art form, or do you think having a one size fits all, but it really doesn't, because only some people are going to be exactly what Miyazaki wants and everyone else is going to be some kind of outside of that perfect player? Which is the better way if you could snap your fingers and get either? I would say the first.
I mean, yeah. I mean, again, it goes back to what you're saying, what I'm saying. We're both saying the same thing, just in different ways. It's whatever gets you that exhilaration. If it's
right,
I go look at the guide and figure out what he's weak to, or if, hey, I've got the reflexes and I can beat him with the dex build, even though he's strong toward my it's whatever gets you there, I think is the point. And if slowing it down, like I think Spider-Man or some game does,
Spider-Man 2 does it, Roller Dome does it. And I'm fine. People say, "Oh, you can't take trophies away." Who gives a shit? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, fuck Souls fans are so fucking fickle about everything. Fuck them.
I want to see this applied to lots more games, and I'll tell you, because when I played this, and I knew it would work, but I had never fucked around with cheats because I just never had a desire to, or never entered my brain. But when I did this experiment, I was so delighted to act. This is a fun boss for me to fight now. I still can't kill him. Yeah. I still may need to go grind my character up, but I love now that I can see the things that strategy guides talk about, or you guys talk about, when it's like, oh, you got to wait for this move and then you move in. I'm like, I was never able to see that before.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say is I do think you could do this, right? I mean, without the slow-mo, and it would be much more satisfying with you. That would be the only thing.
But I don't think it would feel as fun to learn it, though. Like it would be
okay. So it's about the journey, not the end result.
Well, because the journey would be probably more predicated on luck more often, whereas this, I would feel like, oh, I beat him because I could read the pattern and I solved the puzzle. Yeah,
like now, you could hit him from behind, get 2 shots, don't get greedy, roll back.
Yeah, then I feel like I've done something. Whereas on Malik or whatever his name is, when I've gotten close to beating him, the fact that I haven't gotten close to beating him again, all that says to me is I got lucky and I don't know what the fuck was happening.
Get behind the pillars, Jaffe.
I
pillars.
have, but also
You
final
got to
thing on
roll
this.
forward, man.
Final thing on this.
You got rivers of blood, man. Fuck him up.
It's not as good as that people tell me. I wish it was as good as people tell me.
Yeah.
But what's great about this game also, the Souls cameras, especially in Elden Ring in rooms like that, you know, you are manually fighting the camera, and you are also.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like, okay, you want to see the bad guy, we're going to pull the camera back for you. Like, there is a mod that lets you pull the camera back in Elden Ring, and I do wonder if I would enjoy it more for that as well, because then I could actually read what the guys are doing. But a lot of times, and people are like, well, you have to listen for the sound. I'm like, yeah, I know. But fuck you is my answer. All right, buddy. Good chat. Thanks, man. Talk to you soon. All right, let me get this from Bookster. Bookster says, it's ironic the Get Good community is now complaining the game is too hard. I'm back to Elden Ring just so I can see how hard the DLC is. Yeah, I mean, not all of them. You know, and there are people. We had a guy call in Saturday to the Saturday show, and he was at the final boss of the DLC. So not everyone's complaining, but there are a lot more than I expected, given how historically hard these games are. It shouldn't come as a surprise, but to hear people talk about it that are complaining, this is beyond acceptable. But I don't know. All right, let me go to the chat real quick here. See what you guys are chatting about, and then I do want to talk about Dr. Disrespect real quick in a moment. Let's see. JSD, good to see you, buddy. He says it's both. It's not hard. You define what cheats you. Yeah, you define what cheats are to you. Sure. But again, I'm less worried about being stamped with a scarlet letter of cheater and more worried about how can games best express the vision of the creators. Because I would argue that if you go by the quote in Game Informer from Miyazaki, what we're playing right now is brilliant, but it's not getting us there, is what I would say. But thank you for that super chat. I want to make sure to miss any other super chats real quick. Okay. Let me go to the live chat, see what you guys are talking about. If I've missed you and you really want to say something, just retype it. I was on a different screen when all that was coming in. Eddie T says it's really not that hard. People are just crybabies because there's max level characters are useless at the start. They got to man up. Haven't played it, but okay. I'm sure people would disagree with that, but I hear you. Jaffe can't see any boss's movements, but he noticed perfectly the new Contra is not responsive. That's not true, though. What I noticed was when I played it, it felt wrong and I was getting hit and I'm like, I don't think this is my fault. And then I went back and I watched it in slow motion. It wasn't that I could identify the problem. All I knew was something felt wrong. So fuck you. Okay. Goodrich, game designer David Goodrich says, dynamic difficulty tuning a subject near and dear to my heart. It has been in games since Ratchet and Clank 1. You need to come on and talk about it. I didn't know you worked on Ratchet 1. I knew you worked at, what were the guys who were in the Treehouse? What were those guys called? Not Nintendo. It was, they did a bunch of the Ratchets for the PSP. I think you worked on those, right? We should talk about that. I'll get you on sometime soon if you're interested and available. Okay. The journey is internet research, says Fuzzy Logic Pass. Well, I'm just saying, I mean, and there is something cool about that to me as a guy who came up with video game manuals and loved poring over them for hints and tips and stuff that the developer put in there. It is kind of cool, even though the developer doesn't do that anymore, to go, oh, there's all this stuff on the internet that can help. My dad was not a gamer, no, because he was, you know, I was 7 when the first, or 6 when like video games really became a thing with Space Invaders and right before. Okay. Jaffe, what would you do with the trophies? Should they still be on? No, I don't. No, I would say that I would not want to, ethical human. I would not want to, because even though it doesn't work for me, I don't really give a fuck about, you know, flexing video game skills. And I'm rolling my eyes because I just think it's so silly, but I appreciate that that's not silly for a lot of people. And a lot of people do seem to think that that's something to write home about. And, or they just enjoy the collection part. And so I wouldn't want to remove that from them. And I certainly would be more than happy to say, yeah, if I turn on any of these sliders, then for sure, some of the achievements, or all of them, or at least the ones that relate to these sliders directly, should not be what is being celebrated via trophies or achievements or whatever. Blood Money says, you talk like the vision couldn't be the money. Souls makes the difficulty a selling point, but in Elden Ring, they completely overshoot it just to make people talk. Yeah, I mean, Blood Money, all I can go on really is what the press is and what Miyazaki said directly. I'm not suggesting we don't live in a world where the minute they walk away from the press, they go, those fucking idiots, don't they know that the actual point is to sell tons of copies and we get that done by making this debate happen? I get it. But I don't have that data, so I will agree with you that it's possible, but I don't have any data to suggest that's what's happening. Yeah, see, Eddie T, I don't live that way. I don't mean that like, that's a bad way to put it because it sounds like I'm being elitist. I don't mean it like that, but he says, I felt emasculated when I couldn't beat a boss last night. I came back today and kicked his bitch ass. I don't attribute any of my own personal real life sense of things that I dig in life to that. And I'm not saying there's a problem if you do. I'm just saying that for me, I just can't relate to that at all.
Hey, I came in a little late, but the topic is interesting. I'm playing Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Yes.
And is it hard? Yeah. Is it unfairly hard? No.
Okay.
The problem is with Erd Tree, and then I'll get to in general Souls games.
Okay.
The problem with Erd Tree is a lot of people, they like to rush through these games as like a badge of honor. Like, ooh, I first tried every boss and I beat it in like 24 hours or whatever. Yeah, no. You're not going to be able to do that in this because you have to collect these things called Scudatree or Scudatree fragments.
Okay.
They are how you get more powerful in the DLC. In the main game, you get more powerful with leveling up your gear, leveling up your character,
right,
finding better stuff.
I haven't experienced that, but I read about that when they were doing previews, and I thought that was actually quite cool that they gave you a different way to level up.
Yeah, and what it is every time you increase your, I can't remember what it's called, Shadow Realm something, attribute, it's a 5% increase to both the damage you deal and a 5% decrease to the damage you take. So if you are someone who got to like level 250 in the main game and I'm on New Game Plus 4, and you're like, I'm so badass, and you go in there and you ignore looking for those things and finding them, you will get the living shit knocked out of you because you're going to be super weak compared to what the game wants you to be. And the reason they did it like that, it wasn't to punish people who played a ton and got high level and have great gear. It's because it's the only way to fairly balance everything around, people who are, I never beat Elden Ring, but I did beat Moog. Or people who are like, oh yeah, dude, I went through Elden Ring and I'm on New Game Plus 7 and I'm like level 500. So the way they balanced it was with a new system that's just a blanket buff. So if you were already powerful, that 5% is a much bigger buff than someone who wasn't that powerful, than that 5% they get. And that's how they did it.
Well, I mean, there is a very good point you make. Possibly, I see. Thank you for the super chat. I see JSD saying, "I don't see how it's different than Breath of the Wild. Explore people." And William says the problem is people aren't finding scattered tree fragments using dry livers, defensive talismans +2, boiled crab, etc. It isn't just the scattered tree fragments. Well, but what's interesting about that to me, though, is again it goes back to, where is the intention, or what should happen? Like, is Miyazaki sitting back and cackling and going, this is exactly what I want? Because my understanding is, and I didn't look at it on Steam, is that that game, Elden Ring, the first one was review bombed at first and mixed because for many of the same reasons, people didn't know how to play it. Is he sitting back going, you stupid sons of bitches, don't you know my tricks yet? In about a month, you guys are all going to work together and you're going to start to learn that you're playing it wrong and you need a lot of these things. Yeah, you can play it old school Elden Ring, but you probably shouldn't unless you're a fucking savant. I mean, there is that argument. And then the question becomes, Is that good? Is that wise? Should he have made it much more clear at the very beginning? It's like, hey, you're stepping into something new, or is that part of the fun for this game?
Well, I mean, are you talking for specifically the expansion or just the Soul series in general?
Well, I'm talking Elden Ring and now Erd
Okay.
Tree. Erd Tree clearly is, if what you're saying is true, and it sounds like a bunch of people in the chat are agreeing with you, if what you're saying is true, then there are going to be a lot of people that come to this going, oh, I'm just picking this up right where Elden Ring left off, and I'm New Game Plus 4, and I'm a badass, and what the fuck? Is that part of the journey, and he is willing to risk losing customers and pissing people off because he knows after people start talking, it's like, fuck it, I'm going back in. I heard this guy, William and Ravnos and JSD saying, here's a way you could play it, and fuck, they were right. Like, is that the great part of this? Is that the fun of this?
Look, in an interview, I don't
I'm not
remember
saying it's a
where I
bad
saw
thing,
it.
by the way. I think there's something quite beautiful in that, but I'm
No.
saying it comes at a risk.
From all of the interviews I've seen with Miyazaki about the Soul series and Elden Ring, he always thought of it as a cooperative game.
I heard that too, yes.
So he never intended for people to be running around as a wretch or whatever they're called, where you have all your stats are shit and you use a rusty dagger and you beat the game with no armor and without ever leveling, like my son does on the Dark Souls games because he's a weirdo. He intended for people to play it and explore and get their ass handed to them and realize, oh, well, I can't do this alone. I need help. So, hey, I'm going to summon this person who also needs help. Because in the early games like Demon Souls, it was all weird in those ones because you had like, oh, well, when you die, you're in a different state than you are normal. So your health is lower and your stats are lower. So you kind of like have to defeat a boss to become whole again. Elden Ring doesn't do that, and neither does Erd Tree.
Gotcha.
But
okay.
his initial idea was, he said that there was a really bad snowstorm in Japan. They were
I
building
love
up
this
a hill.
story. You tell the story, but it's a beautiful story. I don't know how true it is, but if it's a true story, it's just fucking beautiful. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've heard it. Where basically no one could get up this hill in town. And what started happening was people just slowly bunched together like a train, and they all pushed each other up over this hill because no one could get up it. So they're like, hey, if we work together, we could do it.
See,
and
I heard it was a flat
idea.
tire. I heard it was somebody had a flat tire and helped him, and he wouldn't have been able to change his tire. So I love that it's just this
He might just
mythos
change
now.
it
Who
all
knows?
the time, yeah.
Yeah, but I love it. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
way to express his design intention. So, and I'll tell you something else. You calling up and saying that, and hearing JS say it, and hearing I already forgot his name. I'm sorry. The other guy say it. Makes me go. Again, I still got to fucking finish the first one, but
Yeah.
makes me go, okay, that's kind of cool. Maybe people are just kind of quote playing it wrong. And
It's
now
not
what
that they're
you're
playing it
saying,
wrong.
well, it's not that they're playing it wrong, but they're not taking advantage of one of the things that maybe makes those games great,
Yeah.
which is, hey man, it's like God, right? God, it's like, I planted all the seeds you need to have an awesome time. That's
Yeah.
on you if you don't want to go looking for them.
That's
And
literally
just go,
how I look at it. And I am guilty of being not ignorant, but I just forget to use stuff. Like William brought up a good point. Like, yeah, and
William.
people need to up their talismans, and they need to level up their stuff, and they need to eat like boiled crab and use exalted flesh and other items. Me and my daughter, we're terrible at using potions or items in games. Because we're just like, no, we need to save them in case we need them. Because if we use them now, we won't have them later. And then we end up beating these damn games. And it's like, oh, look, I had like max stack of exalted flesh that I crafted and never ate. Like, do you eat the things when you're playing? Do you ever buff yourself before you go in?
I do.
Or do you forget to?
Well, it's not that I forget to. It's my fear is I've been trained by Resident Evil, right? So I've got all these... I got these things that I forget what they're called, that you can like crack them before you go into a battle and your stats shoot up for like a long time, or at least for the battle and all that shit.
Yep.
But I'm saving all those till the final boss. So even that is like, I don't know when to use this. And am I going to come to the final boss and it's like, oh, you fucked up. You shouldn't have used it. Now you got to start all. I'm like, that is a real problem with a game like this, or any games. You play enough games and you you don't know the language the game is using to communicate with you. You don't know what vernacular it has. And so
Yeah.
you're kind of bringing your own experience to it. So, but yeah, maybe I could totally kill a bunch of bosses faster if I just crack those fucking things, but I never use them.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm always afraid that if I use them, that I won't have them to use them, which is completely defeating the point. It's like, no, they're there to use
unless
them.
the point is like Resident Evil. It's like, fucking, if you can get by without using your plants and your ammo and figure out another way, you best do that, because when you get to the final boss, you're going to want it.
Yep.
Anyway. All right, buddy. Thank you for the call.
Yep. Have a good one.
See you, man. Real quick, Souls. I love this. Wild Samurai says Souls games are nothing if the community isn't up in arms. He's a troll with a suit and tie. That's pretty good.